Hello, my name is Shane Gunn. This is my presentation for my endocrinology, which is the study of hormones for my BIO-515 class. To begin off, we're talking about the endocrine glands. The endocrine glands that we are going to study in at least a GCU by 2010 or 211 or 202 are going to be the hypothalamus, pituitary, the thyroid, a little bit of parathyroid, pancreas, adrenal glands, and the gonads. So the best way of thinking about this is the hypothalamus is going to be the mastermind or the president or the control system of the entire endocrine system. It's going to control everything. It's going to, we'll talk about hormones and how it does that. Up next is the pituitary gland. It's kind of like the vice president or the second in command. With that, what's interesting is the pituitary gland is actually dual lobe. There is an anterior and posterior, and each one does something different. The posterior doesn't only releases hormones that are actually made in the hypothalamus, while the anterior part of the pituitary gland releases hormones that are made in there. So you actually see a difference in that. The thyroid gland, which is going to control metabolism. The adrenal glands, salt, sugar, sex are the good things, remember, for the medullas and all that stuff. Pancreas is going to control blood sugars, and the gonads are beer sex hormones, ovaries and testes. So let's talk about the hypothalamus real quick. So the hypothalamus is released a very assortment of hormones. First up is the antidiuretic hormone, or ADH. So this is an anti means against, diuretic means to pee. So this actually tells the kidneys to not pee. This will actually increase blood pressure, retain water, which is increasing blood pressure. This usually happens when someone usually loses blood pressure or is super dehydrated. So we don't lose water or we keep our blood pressure high. Oxytocin has lots of functions. With GC, in regards to GC and how it's taught, we're mainly going to learn about childbirth and how it affects the uterus and uterine contraction and how it affects lactation. The cortical releasing hormone, or CRH, actually is going to go to the pituitary, and it tells the pituitary to release a hormone called cortisol, or ATCH. I would just know cortisol, ATCH is an acronym for a very large hormone that you don't really need to know about too much, the name at least. Gonadotropic releasing hormone, or GnRH, goes to the pituitary, tells the pituitary to release FSH and LH. Growth hormone releasing hormone tells it to release it. Growth hormone inhibiting hormone they both go to the pituitary. Releasing hormone tells it to release growth hormone. Inhibitory tells it to not. Prolactin releasing hormone goes to pituitary, tells it to release prolactin. And then thyrotropin releasing hormone does that. If you notice, this is why I say that the hypothalamus is the mastermind. It has pretty much mostly releasing or inhibitory hormones. And it doesn't really release anything itself. Everything goes to the pituitary. Antidiuretic and oxytocin don't have a release inhibiting or releasing form, but they are not even released by the hypothalamus. Everything goes to pituitary. That's why it's the mastermind, the CEO. It makes the pituitary do all its work for it. So pituitary. So you have your ATCH, or androcorticotropic hormone, which is basically called cortisol. It's a stress hormone. Follicle stimulating hormone stimulates production of sex cells, sperm, eggs, ovulation. Luteinizing hormone will help stimulate testosterone in males and females. Mainly, we cover this more in females than males because males have testes that help produce testosterone anyway. This is the main way how women get testosterone in their system. Growth hormone helps with growing. That's pretty obvious. Prolactin helps with breast milk production and a couple other things, but that's what we need to know. Thyroid stimulating hormones, it helps stimulate the thyroid. The two bolded things, oxytocin, antidiuretic hormone, are things that are made by the hypothalamus, but they are released by the posterior pituitary gland. Okay. So the negative feedback system. And what does this mean? You should already heard this from Bio 210 or 201. But basically what the negative feedback system is that, let's say for example, you're hot. What do? Well, you turn the AC on in your house. All right. the AC then makes you cold. That means you're eventually going to turn your AC off, which then starts the cycle again. Basically, what this means is you keep on making something, and whatever you make ends the system or ends the cycle. You'll see this a lot. Most of the hormones test questions for the endocrine system is based off of this. Now let's look at the most common one to be tested on in regards to GCU, and that's going to be with the thyroid. So we have thyroid releasing hormone, right? So TRH. One moment. I have to write that. Sorry about that. My dog was whining about something outside the storm. Thyroid releasing hormone is going to go from the hypothalamus, and it's going to cause an increase in TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, which is going to cause the release of T3 and T4, which are just the hormones that the thyroid releases, which controls metabolism. So once T3 and T4 are high enough levels, your hypothalamus stops releasing TRH, which then stops releasing TSH, which stops releasing T3 and T4, and then your T3, T4 levels go down, which means you have to start releasing TRH again. So that's how that works. But interestingly enough, with this, we can get some diseases. So let's say, for example, we have a patient, you run a blood sample with a patient, and we notice that the patient has elevated levels of T3, T4, but decreased levels of TRH and TSH in their blood. What does this tell us? Well, this tells us that for some reason, T3 and T4 is not acting properly. There is something wrong with the thyroid because it should be stopping due to TRH and TSH being decreased. Well, that means there's something directly wrong with the thyroid, which this would be an example of primary hyperthyroidism. It's primary because it's affecting the organ itself, the thyroid, and it's hyper because it's having too much T3 and T4. If it was, let's use a different color, it's purple. If we had an increase in T3, T4, an increase in TSH, but a decrease in TRH, there'd be a problem wrong with the pituitary gland, either a tumor or some type of genetic disease there. That'd be secondary hyperthyroidism. If you have an increase in all of them, we don't really know, but if there was an example, if there was a problem with the hypothalamus, that would be an example of primary hyperthyroidism. Sorry, not primary, sorry, tertiary. My bad, tertiary hyperthyroidism. So we're going to take these principles and actually look at the diseases. So hyperthyroidism, which means we have too much T3 and T4. So there's probably something wrong with the thyroid, something wrong with the pituitary gland, or something wrong with the hypothalamus, depending on which of the blood levels we have. So the signs and symptoms we would see for hyperthyroidism is rapid weight loss, because remember, the thyroid is metabolism. You think metabolism, think of burning fats, getting tons of energy and heat. So you have too much of this, which means the person is going to lose weight. They might not be exercising. They might just be gorging themselves on food, but they can't keep weight. They actually lose weight. They actually have a very high body temperature because they are constantly burning fat. They're in a high metabolic state. Increased heart rate because all this extra energy, all this extra glucose in the fat. They have tons and tons of energy because they are burning fat. Well, that's going to lead to weird things like a lack of sleep. They're not going to be able to sleep. They're going to be irritable and kind of nervous. You're also going to see weird things. They're going to have weird fast bowel movements. They're going to not have, if they're female, they're going to have very, very few or very, very light menstrual cycles because they don't have enough body weight do stuff like this. They could become infertile with women due to the lack of body weight. Hypothyroidism just means there's too little T3 and T4 hormones, the thyroid hormones. It's the exact opposite. You're gonna see lots and lots of weight gain. Even the person is not eating, they're bulimic or exercising like crazy in a diet, no matter what, they're gonna gain tons and tons of weight. Their heart rate's going to go way, way down. They're gonna be super cold all of the time. They're gonna have no energy. And sometimes the thyroid itself could form a goiter, which is a giant growth in the thyroid because it's inflamed. But you can see that for both of them, depending on which one. Now, which interesting enough is I'm gonna go over two diseases which I think should be, which most students that I helped teach last semester missed, and it's still about the endocrine system, and that's about cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone released by the kidney. So when you're stressed, you should think about this. The freshman 15 is a thing, right? When usually first year of college, people put on weight. People are stressed, they put on weight, they get really tired, high blood pressure, high sugar, all of this. This is because of cortisol. Cortisol is to keep you alive through long time stress. Your body doesn't know how to handle between testing or school stress and like starvation stress. It handles in the same way. And that's what cortisol does. Cushing syndrome is when there's too much cortisol or hypercortisolism. So you get these weird, interesting things like tons and tons of weight gain, but mainly in the upper extremities. You'll see what's considered a buffalo hump or fat hump that forms right on the base of the neck and the back by the traps. A fat pad forms there. Most people don't have a fat right there. The face becomes very mooned or puffy. They'll have increased facial and body hair, tons and tons of weight gain, but their limbs will become very, very skinny and they lose actually lots of muscle mass because the body thinks it's going to go in starvation mode. Cortisol is kind of, I think about it almost like starvation. The body will put on weight because you're going to lose it later on. That's what the high blood pressure is for, and high blood sugar is to keep it because you're going to need it because your body thinks it's going to die. Addison's disease is the exact opposite. And interesting enough, we like to teach Addison's disease because one of our presidents, John F. Kennedy, JFK, had this. So symptoms you'll see with this is weight loss, the exact opposite. You'll see muscle weakness, fatigue that gets worse over time, that's the key characteristic, low blood pressure, and patchy skin. Cortisol also is affected by antidiuretics. You actually going to pee out lots of sodium. So you actually see a craving of salt because you're peeing out all your sodium. So this is also a very interesting thing you'll see with Addison's disease. That's my video with references. Hopefully it was helpful. Thank you very much. Have a great day.